In Slovakia, Prime Minister Robert Fico is currently hospitalized in critical condition after an assassination attempt. Palestinian citizens rally in Ramallah to mark the 76th anniversary of the Nakba. And in Brazil, the Chamber of Deputies approved the suspension of the payment of the state of Rio Grande do Sul's debt to the Treasury for 3 years. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Wednesday, Prime Minister of Slovakia, Robert Fico, was wounded in a shooting incident. The incident that occurred during a parliamentary session, which according to the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Lubos Blaha, has been postponed to further notice. The shooting took place in front of the local House of Culture, where Fico had gone to meet his supporters. Reports have indicated that the Prime Minister had received life-threatening shots in his abdomen. The Prime Minister was transported by helicopter to regional capital Banská Bystrica for urgent treatment. Slovak media unfolded the shooter was a 71-year-old man, but the motive hasn't been clear yet. Furthermore, President-elect Peter Pellegrini cut short a foreign trip and is returning to Slovakia. A spokesperson for his party said.
I am shocked. We are all shocked by the terrible and vicious attack on Prime Minister Robert Fico. What has happened is something that we cannot seem to realize because we cannot comprehend it. A physical attack on the Prime Minister is, first of all, an attack on a person, but it is also an attack on democracy. Hateful rhetoric, which we can see in society, leads to hateful actions. Please stop it.
On the other hand, Lubos Blaha, Vice President of the Slovak Parliament, denounced the hate agenda promoted by the liberal media and the political opposition against Robert Fico government that stimulated this event.
I want to condemn in the strongest possible terms what happened today in Handlova and at the same time express my severe disgust at what you have done here in recent years. Your liberal media, the political opposition, what hatred you have spread against Robert Fico, the gallows you have built for him, that anger, that rage, that hatred that is the result of your actions today, of the progress of the entire opposition, of the liberal media. We have a lot of emotions together. Robert Fico is a 4-time Prime Minister, and because of your hatred, he's fighting for his life today. This is an attack of every Slovak man and every Slovak woman and every citizen of the Slovak Republic. For years you have nurtured a frightening hatred, a fearful hatred. I am convinced that the guilt that the progressive carry, the guilt that all liberal media carry, will never be washed away and will never be removed from former Prime Minister Igor Matović. It can never be removed from leader of progressive Slovakia, Michal Simeka. It can never be removed from any of them.
Regarding the attack, Michal Simeka, leader of Progressive Slovakia, one of the main opposition parties, called for a political reconciliation.
I would like to ask the political leaders to restrain themselves, as now is the time for a kind of political reconciliation. Now is not the time for escalation or attacks or with passions. I have also tried to suggest today in that special session that all the political parties that are represented in the National Council should have a joint group, a joint statement and a joint expression of solidarity towards the Prime Minister. I think that will be very appropriate at this point in time. So let me say, at least for myself, that I wish Prime Minister Fico a speedy recovery. And I want to say on behalf of all of us, on behalf of our entire political party, that we feel for his closest and also for his fellow political comrades, that really should not be the difference between the coalition and the opposition. Thank you very much, and thank you once again. Once again, I want to say that I wish the Prime Minister will get out of this as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Robert Fico, Prime Minister of Slovakia, began his political career in the Communist Party shortly before the Velvet Revolution of 1989, which led to the break of the former Czechoslovakia. In 1999, he founded his center-left Smer SD party after being rejected for a ministerial post by the Democratic left. Fico is an admirer of Russian President Vladimir Putin, whom he has said he would not allow to be arrested by international order if he came to Slovakia. His career over the past 3 decades has been marked by a nationalist and anti-Western vision. Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Those stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. Palestinians rally in Ramallah to mark the 76th anniversary of their Nakba, or catastrophe. During the 1948 war that followed Israel's creation, around 760,000 Palestinians were driven from their homes, and many took refuge in what would later become the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Sirens have gone off throughout Palestinian cities for 76 seconds, marking 76 years that have passed since the 1948 catastrophe. As the sirens went off in Ramallah, everyone fell silent and raised 2 fingers in the air as a sign of victory and demand of peace. While Palestinians mark 76 years since Nakba in Gaza, over 500,000 Palestinians have been forcibly displaced in recent days amid intense Israeli attacks across the Strip. According to the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, some 450,000 Palestinians have been expelled from Rafah in the last week, following a ground operation by Israeli forces widely criticized by the international community. Meanwhile, in the north, over 100,000 people were displaced as Israeli tanks have pushed into densely populated neighborhoods in Jabalia and met with fierce resistance. The Israeli occupation army committed a new massacre on Wednesday by bombing a health center of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees in the Gaza Strip. In this way, 10 displaced civilians were killed and several wounded in the airstrike on the facilities of a United Nations-affiliated clinic in the Sabra neighborhood south of Gaza City. On the other hand, Israeli bombardments were also reported on the town of Jabalia and the Bureij refugee camp, killing 9 civilians, including children. We stay in Palestine, where dozens of wounded civilians were transferred on Wednesday to Al-Aqsa Hospital in the city of Deir al-Balah in central Gaza, following Israeli attacks in the area. In this sense, entering the 222nd day of the Israeli genocide, health officials reported that the number of people killed has reached 35,173, most of them children and women, while more than 79,000 have been wounded. In addition, thousands of bodies remain buried under rubble and have not been recovered due to the continued siege by Israeli troops. The Commissioner General of the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees, Philip Lazzarini, condemned a new attack by Israeli extremists against the agency's facilities in occupied Jerusalem. Through his account on the social media X, Lazzarini shared a video and denounced another arson attempt by Israeli children and teenagers at an UNRWA facility in Jerusalem. The Commissioner called for a stop on this type of aggressions that the agency has been the target of in recent months, which concern attacks on its headquarters and harassment of its staff. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan described Israel as a terrorist state that could pose sooner or later a threat to other states, as it is now attacking the Palestinian people.
If this rampaging state, this terrorist state, is not stopped, they will set their sights on Anatolia sooner or later with the delusion of the promised land. Israel is not only attacking Palestinians in Gaza, it is attacking us. Hamas is defending Anatolia in Gaza. Are you so blind that you cannot see this?
The leaders of the Palestinian factions residing in Syria held a meeting in Damascus to discuss developments in the Palestinian scenario, a meeting that stressed the need to unify ranks to confront the ongoing Israeli genocidal war in the Gaza Strip. Let's see.
In the face of the Israeli attack on Rafah, which pushed aside any chance of progress in the negotiations aimed at establishing a ceasefire in Gaza, the meeting stressed that the unified armed struggle is the best option to force the Zionist regime to stop its genocidal war against the Palestinian people.
Our Palestinian people will not stand idly by and will continue to support the Palestinian resistance, and we today as General Secretaries of all factions of the resistance affirm to act united to stop the Israeli aggression against our people, and we assure to continue the struggle until we expel the Israeli occupier from the Gaza Strip and all of Palestine.
Palestinian representatives in Syria also urged for increasing pressure to stop Washington's support for Tel Aviv, which they condemned as Republican U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham incited Israel to drop a nuclear bomb on Gaza.
We demand greater global action to stop the Israeli war of extermination in Gaza and condemn the U.S. complicity, whose President Joe Biden reaffirms through his daily statements his administration's support of this war, including the Israeli refusal to halt the attacks and accept an agreement for the exchange of prisoners and hostages.
In addition to the Palestinian meeting, Damascus further Student Debate Forum, as part of the growing worldwide university movement in condemnation of the Israeli war of extermination in Gaza.
This forum is part of the various activities taking place in different parts of the world in condemnation and repudiation of Zionist crimes, and through this meeting, we join the global effort to document these crimes and then take all perpetrators of these serious crimes against humanity to the International Court of Justice.
Syria, like the entire axis of resistance, does not give in its steadfast support for the fair Palestinian cause, a stance that, among its many manifestations, includes holding these meetings in Damascus.
On Wednesday in Lebanon, the resistance movement Hezbollah shot down an Israeli spy balloon over the settlement of Atmid in the western Galilee region as part of its actions on the front line in support of Gaza. In a statement, Hezbollah confirmed the missile attack after continuously monitoring the movement of the surveillance balloon, which the Israeli forces raised over Atmid in order to spy on Lebanese territory. According to Hezbollah, its attacks destroyed the launching base and the piloting crew. In this regard, the resistance movement specified the Israeli surveillance object camera is in the custody of the Lebanese army. We have a fun short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Fun short break, go away. Welcome back. Brazil's Chamber of Deputies approved the suspension of the payment of the state of Rio Grande do Sul's debt to the Treasury for 3 years following the floods that have left more than 140 people dead. The measure proposed by the government of President Luis Inácio da Silva to mitigate the tremendous economic impact of the climate tragedy in the region will now be analyzed by the Senate. The executive branch defended that during the suspension, interest on the debt will not be counted either, with the aim of recovering the economic capacity of Rio Grande do Sul in the shortest possible time. With the suspension, around 10% of this amount will be destined for the reconstruction of this territory where heavy rains have partially or totally flooded entire cities in the last 2 weeks. Meanwhile, Brazilian authorities have raised the death toll to 148, according to the latest Civil Defense Bulletin published, the biggest climatic tragedy in the history of the southern region of Brazil has also left 124 people missing and 806 injured. 540,000 people have been displaced from their homes and more than 440 municipalities have been affected by the disaster. As part of the work carried out, the Brazilian government set up a field hospital in which around 20,000 professionals from the region are working. In addition, more than 81,000 people have been accommodated in shelters.
The biggest challenge is to coordinate the whole team here. We work only with volunteers in the Red Cross, with several sectors, several services, with the dog, the children's part, the whole health administration, the hygiene of the environment. There are many people in activity. There are 200 volunteers. So this is the biggest challenge, but it is a great satisfaction to help people in this moment of suffering.
Brazilian President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva denounced that the extreme right wing spread fake news about the tragedy in Brazil and that the lack of information harms the work and assistance in Rio Grande do Sul. Some media reported that at least 20 fake news circulated 2 weeks after the beginning of heavy rains in the Brazilian state of Rio Grande do Sul and were spread by politicians and artists linked today to the extreme right. The son of former President Jair Bolsonaro said President Lula da Silva only took measures 4 days after the rains began. Other opposition politicians also spread some false information about alleged detentions of trucks and forecasts to cope with the situation. In Canada, thousands of people were ordered to evacuate on Tuesday due to the threat of an array of out-of-control wildfires in the western and northwestern portions of the country. Firefighters are trying to control a wildfire southwest of Fort McMurray, a town of nearly 70,000 people, but high temperatures and strong winds are hampering the efforts. The blaze has already scorched nearly 10,000 hectares of forest and is about 16 kilometers from the town which declared a state of emergency. In the municipality of Wood Buffalo, hundreds of people were evacuated while there were warnings of likely evacuation in Fort McMurray. In the British Columbia province, about 4,000 inhabitants of Fort Nelson had to shelter on Monday.
The biggest worry is this fire will come into town and destroy the town. I really don't like to think about it. I like to keep myself busy out here doing what I can to communicate with people and talk to the few people that are left and let them know what's going on if they don't know already. But that, for sure, that is my biggest fear.
In the French island territory of New Caledonia, at least 2 people were killed and several hundred injured in the second night of violence in protests over changes to the local electoral roll approved by France. The office of the High Commissioner, France's top representative in New Caledonia, confirmed the 2 killings on Wednesday without giving details of the circumstances. Although heavily armed security forces were deployed throughout the capital, Nouméa, and a nighttime curfew was ordered, the clashes continued throughout the night, almost unabated. Protests in the archipelago come amid a decision by the French Parliament to approve a reform of the New Caledonian electoral roll. The measure was approved at midnight on Wednesday by the National Assembly in Paris by 351 votes in favor to 153 against. It establishes that people from the metropolis who have lived there for a minimum of 10 years will be able to vote, weakening the electoral weight of the native population, mostly pro-independence. French President Emmanuel Macron called a meeting of the Defense and National Security Council on Wednesday to discuss the protests. The Cannes Film Festival celebrates its 77th edition from the 14th to the 25th of May, once again turning the luxurious French town into the epicenter of the 7th art in the competition for the Palme d'Or.
For 12 days, more than 35,000 people from different countries around the world will attend the festival screenings and walk through the aisles of the Marché du Film. In addition to representing films with a more independent presence, the event is also the most important festival of the European film industry. The official program for Cannes 2024 has revealed new details, images, and trailers of the most anticipated films to be seen, including 19 films from the official competition, the festival's most eye-catching section. The world's most important film festival rolls out the red carpet for veteran filmmakers such as the American director Francis Ford Coppola, who will present his film Megalopolis. The film is about an ambitious science fiction story starring Adam Driver as an idealistic architect on a mission to rebuild New York after a cataclysmic disaster, whose project clashes with the wishes of the corrupt mayor played by Giancarlo Esposito. Another film in the competition for the Palme d'Or is Kinds of Kindness by Greek director Yorgos Lanthimos, in which he again directs the American Emma Stone in a triptych fable that tells three stories: that of a trapped man who tries to take control of his own life, of a policeman terrified because his wife, who had disappeared at sea, has returned and looks like someone else, and of a woman determined to find someone with a special gift, destined to become a prodigious spiritual leader.
The moment of truth. Isn't it wonderful?
This year's Cannes jury will be chaired by director Greta Gerwig, author of the hit film Barbie, who will award the top prize on May 25 to the successor of Anatomy of a Fall from French director Justin Triet, winner of last edition's honor.
Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.